お前ら国王のエヴァン様が皆にお言葉をおかけになる。しかと耳にせよ。
みんな、この新しい国にはどんな困難が待っているかはわからない。でも僕は作りたいんだ。みんなが笑い合える豊かで美しくて、そして平和な国。
エヴァン、
みんなこの僕と一緒に歩いてほしい。きっと険しい道だけど、この道は希望に続いているんだ。
So the latest big JRPG of 2018 is Ni no Kuni 2. Ni no Kuni was the sequel, or is the sequel, to the original Ni no Kuni, which was a PlayStation 3 game from a couple of years ago now, which was really notable for fans of JRPGs and Japanese animation and culture and arts in general, because it had the involvement of Studio Ghibli. Now, Studio Ghibli is an amazing animation house that anybody who has any interest in Japan has surely seen some of its films. We're talking about stuff like Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Laputa, My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service, Ponyo, and so many other films that are just classics in their own right. And that studio is not traditionally involved with video games by any means. So for Level 5, the developer of heritage such as Yoko Watch and Dragon Quest, to actually have that studio involved with making this game, or making the original Ni no Kuni, that was something that was really special for fans, and I think they responded to it. It wasn't the perfect game by any means, but it was an emotional, heartfelt game that a lot of people just loved, because it had that real authenticity and that real emotional gravitas behind it. So that was a lot to live up to, and I think Ni no Kuni 2 was concerning a lot of people, firstly because it no longer had the involvement of Studio Ghibli, which is unfortunate, but I think Level 5 is a very experienced developer and has done a really good job in capturing that aesthetic and the storytelling style and the music and everything else that the studio kind of helped it develop. Is present in the sequel, so I don't think people need to be worried about that. The other concern that people had was the combat system, because early on we found out that the game would have a completely redesigned combat system, and that always concerns people. People who liked the first one were concerned that it was going to be, somehow not as good. And I wanted to do this video actually to discuss, to highlight and kind of showcase the combat system, because I think it's a really good one, and I think it works to the game's benefit, and it strengthens what this series is offering, and offers something for the future for it as well. So the original Ni no Kuni was a Pokemon-like game where you would go through the world, you'd collect monsters, you'd train them up, and then you'd use those monsters in battle, where your characters themselves didn't have a huge role to play in each battle. They were on the battlefield, but their involvement was relatively mild. This game flips that around completely, that your character is now very much the focus. The heroes of the story are very much the focus of the battles as well, which it gives them a greater sense of agency, and it makes it feel more like they are indeed the heroes of the story, which is thematically important. And it's an active battle system, as you can see in front of you from the footage. It is very busy. It's fast-paced. It's you have direct control over the characters, and those characters each have a whole range of different abilities and so on. So there is the potential there, I guess, for people to be overwhelmed with what it offers, especially since it is relatively fast. But I think that it's okay. It's one that you get the hang of quite comfortably. The difficulty curve is quite reasonable, and it gives you plenty of time to get used to each ability and each character before it really kind of escalates and expects you to be a master of them. So I think that most people will be able to get a good feel of the combat system. It helps that the AI is really good and really does help you out. So I don't think anybody's going to struggle too much with the game. And then those Pokemon elements that people really loved from the original Ni no Kuni are still there. As you can see on the screen, there's little critters that are bounding around, and every so often a little circle will appear around one of them, and that's when you can use their special abilities by walking into the circle. But those things are called Higgidies, and you collect those through the world as you go, and those you end up with quite a large number of them, and those can be leveled up and they can get different abilities, and they each offer kind of supplementary effects or supporting effects to your team in battle, whether that be they offer healing or they strengthen you in some way, or some will occasionally do they'll do special attacks, magic attacks, physical attacks on your behalf as well, which can take a big chunk of life off even a boss. So really finding the right team of these Higgidies is really important to being successful at Ni no Kuni 2. And like I said, it adds that Pokemon element that people love from the first, while also giving you direct control over your characters and making it feel like, you know, your characters are the hero of this story, which is again very important for what the developers were looking to achieve with this narrative. The other thing you'll notice is, so to talk about the actual characters that you control in battle, if you look at the top left hand screen, you'll see there are little blue dots or gemstones above the name of, or the health bar of my character. Those represent her ranged attacks that she's got access to. Each character has access to ranged attacks, and with each ranged attack the energy bar slowly depletes, and you can fill it back up again by doing physical attacks. So there's a strategy in the game where you'll obviously want to, if there's a lot of enemies and there's the risk of being mobbed, you want to stand back and remove some of them using ranged attacks, and after that then go in and clear up the remainers using physical attacks, so you can rebuild the ranged attack bar for future battles. The other thing is that each character can carry up to 3 weapons into battle, and those weapons each have their own percentage bar. Once that reaches 100%, you can use that weapon to unleash a really powerful special attack. But of course each weapon also has its own strengths and weaknesses as well, so your goal is to kind of you want to use all the 3 weapons and slowly build those energy bars up to 100%, so that when you get to a boss battle you can then really unleash and do a lot of damage quite quickly using those weapons. So there's a lot to think about when you go into battle, I guess is the point I'm making here. It's not a button mashy action game. It's a very thoughtful combat system, and while it is faster than a turn-based game or a lot of actually level 5's combat systems, it's not a stupid one. It's quite clever, it's quite strategic, it forces you to think, it forces you to be creative at times and really kind of master a whole range of different special abilities, make good use of the resources that are available to you, and I really enjoyed it. I think it took me a little while. I was a bit concerned, I must admit, when I went into it, because I was a huge fan of the original Ni no Kuni and its Pokemon style combat system. But I think this one's deeper, and I think this one's more intelligent. I think this one is it's less abstract, and it's easier for players to really get a feel for, and it gives you more to do in combat, so the combat never feels boring, it never drags. There's no sense of grinding to this one, even though there's an awful lot of enemies in the world that you keep coming up against. You never feel like you're getting bogged down in the combat, because it's that enjoyable. So the other part of the game, and I didn't know about this until I actually started to play it and fell in love with it very quickly afterwards, there are actually kind of strategic battles as well, where you form an army of units, up to 4. This is an earlier battle where I only had access to 2, but you can get up to 4 units, and then you build them into this kind of force where you're the king, and the game's about building a kingdom. So it has the kind of mass battles and warfare kind of mechanics as well. And each unit has its own special abilities and strengths in the battlefield. Some are melee orientated, some are ranged orientated. As you can see at the moment, I've got 1 melee unit, 1 ranged unit. And you can swivel them around so that you can make sure that the right unit is facing the right enemy at a time. At the moment it's quite simple, just have the melee units at the front so they can absorb the damage and then let the archers do their sniping thing from behind. But as the battles get more and more complex, you need to better organize your unit so that you make sure that the right unit is always facing the right enemy. It's got that kind of, sword beats spear, spear beats axe kind of triangle that's similar to Fire Emblem or those kinds of games. So on top of all of that, each unit has its own special ability. As you saw earlier on, there was like an air raid thing that I called in, which did a lot of damage to every enemy that was near my unit that called it in. So it has those kinds of special abilities as well, and as you fight through the battle, you get command points, which you need to use which you can use to call in those special attacks. All of that stuff's kind of represented at the top right, left of the battlefield, with, you know, the more might you have, the more special attacks you can call in. So I'm about to go and fight the boss, and all hell's about to break loose. And I'm just lucky, or fortunate, I guess, that I've saved enough energy to kind of clear away a lot of enemies with special attacks and things, because, yeah, I'm about to get swamped. But yeah, this isn't too difficult of a strategy kind of feature. It's just a really clever way of breaking up the action and giving you something very different to think about, and it does a really good job of making you feel like you're part of you are a king that's leading troops into battle. And none of this was present in the original Ni no Kuni, so this is all very new, and it's really clever. It's really well done. It's a great feature. I think the developer, I'm sure the developer announced it before the game, but I wasn't paying too much attention, obviously. But I think that this is a major feature that needs to be highlighted, because it's a good part of Ni no Kuni 2. So there you have it. That's my discussion about the game. The combat systems that are at play, as you can see, it's really good. I really enjoyed this game. I love this game. Go and read my review. It's a very positive one. And I think that people who were concerned about the original Ni no Kuni will love what this one offers. So thanks very much for watching the video, and we will see you at the next one.